Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzo.
And today we're going to talk about Superman the Movie, directed by Richard Donner, starring Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman, Marlon Brando, Margot Kidder, Jackie Cooper, Ned Beatty. That's about it. Terrence Stamp has a small little kind of cameo in it. I forgot to look it up, so I'm trying to read my movie poster as to who it was written by. Story by Mario Puzo, or Puzo?
Yeah, Puzo, I believe.
Story by Mario Puzo. Screenplay by Mario Puzo. David Newman, Leslie Newman, and Robert Benton.
Mario Puzo did The Godfather.
That's correct. He wrote the novel The Godfather, and then was also, I believe, had a hand in writing the screenplay as well. So it's kind of an interesting person to have a story by credit from Mario Puzo.
Yeah, I wonder, you have to assume that with Marlon Brando, one got the other on board.
Right.
And, the question is who was first?
I have to believe it was Mario Puzo was probably who came on board first. And then
me too.
Maybe got convinced Marlon Brando to do it. I've heard there's a lot of, stories on how difficult Marlon Brando was in this movie in particular. He was, I guess he was notorious for trying to kind of push directors to see how far, to see what he could get away with.
Uh-huh.
When he first met with Richard Donner, he said that he thought Jor-El should be played by a floating purple potato or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was some weird... Oh, it was a bagel. That's what it was. A floating purple bagel. He said that's what he thought Jor-El should be played by.
What?
And I think he was really just messing with Richard Donner to see how much... If Richard Donner was going to stand up for the film, or if he was going to be one of these people that was like, whatever you say, Mr. Brando, type of thing. And Richard Donner thankfully did not do that, and was like, no. But I think Brando still gave him some trouble on set because he refused to memorize lines, so they always had to have a guy off camera holding cue cards with his lines and everything. So Brando was a little weird in his this wasn't that long after The Godfather, I guess, but he was still kind of, I guess, later in his career. He started in the 50s and whatnot, and so
right. And then he did, I don't remember what his last movie was, and then he just kind of became a recluse and just went off, and no one heard from him again.
His last movie, if I'm not mistaken, was The Score with Robert De Niro.
Right, and I think he came out of hiding for that film.
He definitely didn't work a lot in his later years. He did that horrible version of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which I think was another one that he kind of came out of his retirement, if you will, for. But The Score, and I've actually never seen all of The Score, but that was his last movie, and as far as I know, it's nothing special.
What year did that come out?
Early 2000s, I want to say. I could look it up for you.
I think it was in the 90s, because I remember my parents renting that, and I don't remember if I wasn't allowed to watch it or if I just wasn't interested, but...
It was 2001.
Was it really?
Yep.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different one than... Anyway.
Normally, we kind of start the podcast off with talking about, kind of the first time we saw the movie, our first impression of the film. And I really can't do that with this one because I grew up on these Christopher Reeve movies. I don't have a memory of viewing it for the first time. Superman has always just kind of been, especially the movies have always just kind of been there. Part of, I watched the movies. I watched Adventures of Superman with George Reeves. I watched, Lois and Clark and all that when I was growing up. That being said, though, I never owned these movies. I have, I had Batman on VHS, but I never owned any of the actual Superman movies. I think I might have had, one or two of them that we had taped off of TV or something, but... and I was thinking about this the other day. I wonder if I love the movies that much more because I never actually had them. I rented them occasionally from Blockbuster, and it's almost like eggnog, I love eggnog, but if we got eggnog throughout the whole year, I'd probably get sick of it. I wouldn't. It wouldn't be as special. If
I think I mean, you didn't necessarily get me into eggnog,
Uh-huh.
but at the same time you did. Because, I mean, you had already moved to California, but I remember you talking so highly about it, and I think it was some eggnog ice cream I tried, and I was like, hey, that's pretty good. And then the holidays came around, and I went and got some eggnog, and I've been getting it every year since.
It's delicious. And I know I tried it when I was a kid and hated it. And I don't know when that switch was flipped. But I love eggnog now. Can't drink enough of it.
I always make sure I go and get the last remaining, like, half-gallon cartons that they have at the store after Christmas.
Yeah, before they stop selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had actually, we're way off topic now, but I actually had a really hard time getting eggnog this year. Every time I'd go to the grocery store, like the eggnog section would just be empty. It was, as soon as they put it on the shelf, it was gone. And so they had all these other weird, stupid flavors like vanilla eggnog and cinnamon eggnog.
You just have to get the original, just eggnog.
I want the regular eggnog. And that was always gone.
I'm always tempted to get the Mayfield brand.
That's good, good stuff.
Do you guys get Mayfield out in California?
We do not.
Yeah. But I don't, because it's like twice as much. And I know that because I've had it before, and I know that once I get that, I won't be able to enjoy the Publix brand as much. So I just go straight for the Publix.
That's probably smart, I guess.
Yeah.
Mayfield is good. I remember my mom used to always buy the Mayfield brand. But I don't think I don't think it's so much better than, the generic kind of regular brand that it would just it would keep you from buying Publix brand anymore. But
yeah. So, but I mean, anyway, enough about eggnog.
Right, back to Superman.
Right.
This movie was released in 1978, I believe. It was a year after Star Wars, and I don't know. There was superhero serials in like the 40s and the 50s, maybe even earlier than that. But I don't know if there had been really any comic book superhero movies, other than, I guess, maybe about 10 years before Batman with Adam West and Burt Ward. They had put out a movie based off kind of the TV show.
Was that in theaters?
I believe it was. I think it had a theatrical run. It was like 1966 or something like that.
Uh-huh. That's such a different...
It's such a different...
concept.
Yeah, and take on the... it was a very campy, very... I guess you could say it was aimed at children. I think it was aimed at both children and adults. It was supposed to be something I think both of the adults could enjoy with their children.
Yeah, but it was a comedy.
Right, and this was the first... as far as I know, this was like the first serious take on a superhero to ever come out. And... watching some of the behind the scenes, that was Richard Donner's one note, was it has to feel real. It has, we have to be, we can't take this into a campy area like Batman was. We have to make this real in order for this to work. And it did work.
I remember seeing something about in the behind the scenes a while ago. I think it was Mad TV. Was Mad TV on back then?
Well, I mean, Mad TV was on from like 2000 to
was it? Well, okay, no, this was back before Superman came out. It wasn't Saturday Night Live, but it was some skit comedy show, and they were doing some bit on Superman, and it was a complete joke.
Right.
And Superman, the character himself at the time, was kind of just a joke to the public.
Yeah.
Which is probably why Batman had his show as a comedy as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, George Reeves' show, The Adventures of Superman, was supposed to be serious, but I don't think adults took it seriously. And that
right. And when was that? The 50s?
That was in the 50s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like early 50s, like 1950 to 1952 or something like that. Or I guess it was.
Right.
It had four seasons, but
people.
But still, it was
back
a kid
then
show.
Took Flipper seriously.
Right. So the show itself, I guess, kind of took itself seriously, but it was definitely aimed towards children, and that's why George Reeves, I think, had a hard time getting any other acting work because everybody saw him as Superman and nobody could take him seriously. So I could see how this movie would be daunting. However, they're banking on, in my opinion, they're banking on the success of Star Wars and trying to utilize maybe some of the kind of the same special effects that they had used in Star Wars to try to make this a successful superhero film. And it worked.
Yeah, it did, definitely. Especially for the time.
Yeah.
I don't remember myself seeing it for the first time either. I grew up with the Superman, the Max Fletcher cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed those. Those were on Netflix not too long ago. They took them down. And the first time I remember seeing Superman, like in one of his movies, was actually not the first one. It was Superman 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember didn't start the movie. It was on TV or something, and we turned it on. And my parents were like, "Hey, look, it's Superman." I don't even know if I knew who he was at the time. And It was the Niagara Falls scene.
Right.
So that one really stuck out to me. Superman became my favorite superhero, and then not long after that, around the same time, Batman with his, the old 60s television show with Adam West was on, and then 89 Batman came out. So Superman and Batman were up there. I think Batman kind of took the lead for me, but Superman was a big part of my early childhood.
By the way, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. I think it might have been yesterday. Batman, the 89 Batman came out 25 years ago. Like yesterday.
Yes, to the day, right.
This is obviously going to be posting a few weeks after that, but that made me feel a little old. Even though I saw it in the theater as a child, but still to think the movie is 25 years old now.
Yeah.
I don't recall which Superman movie I saw first out of the 4 Christopher Reeve films. I remember Superman 3 scaring me a little bit as a kid, that part where that woman gets turned into a robot, which I don't think you've seen that film, have you?
I have seen, I think one scene with, what's the guy's name? The
Richard
comedian.
Pryor?
Yeah, Superman flying him around or something and him saying some kooky lines, but I don't remember the movie any other. I don't think I even saw more than that. So
it'll be fun to do an episode on those, on 3 and 4, because I know them really well, but you haven't. It'll be kind of fresh for you. It'll be interesting to get your take on it, because my love for the films, I'm probably going to give them all good ratings, even though they all have problems. Superman 3, if you really think about it, it's like one of the worst films ever made. It's just terrible.
Oh, it has a terrible reputation.
Yeah.
So
there's a great podcast called "How Did This Get Made," and they did a live show, I believe, for Superman 3, and they brought Damon Lindelof in, and they all discussed the film for a while, and it's hilarious. Check that out if you can find it. But anyway, back to Superman the movie, the first movie. One of the most interesting things, I think, to come out of the film is Christopher Reeve, who was, up until that point, a nobody.
I think he'd been in a soap opera.
Right. Something like, yeah. And they originally were going to try to get a known actor. I believe they approached Robert Redford. I think they even approached Clint Eastwood. Can you imagine Clint Eastwood playing Superman?
Oh, my goodness. I love Clint Eastwood, but...
Yeah.
My goodness, now.
It'd be a different movie, that's for sure. But I think it was Richard Donner who said, if you put Robert Redford in the Superman costume and have Robert Redford flying around, nobody's going to think, look, it's Superman. They're going to think, look, it's Robert Redford pretending to be Superman. Mm-hmm. So he felt like you needed to get an actor no one knew of, and then it would be Superman. And there's behind the scenes footage of Christopher Reeve auditioning, and he's really skinny. He wasn't as, this Superman doesn't seem as muscular as you kind of see him in the comics now.
Right.
But if you look at Christopher Reeve's audition compared to how he looks in the movie, he put on a lot of muscle. I mean, I don't know the poundage. It was probably 25, 30 pounds or something like that. But he bulked up for the film. Because he was a scrawny little dude doing the audition. And they were worried about it. They were like, this guy's a little too... He's like a stick. He can't be Superman. And he was like, no, I can do it. And he did, fortunately for us. I still think he's the best Superman. We've only had 3 feature film Supermans, I guess. We've had...
Right.
You could count George Reeves, I suppose, since he did Superman and the Mole Men, even though I don't know if that was... I think it was a serial that they kind of put together as a film. But out of Christopher Reeve, Brandon Routh, and Henry Cavill, I think Christopher Reeve is still the best Superman that we've ever had. He played Superman and Clark Kent so perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. That's something I had to talk about Clark Kent. But I want to get started with the beginning of the movie. The reveal of Krypton. Well, first of all, the credits.
Right.
I skipped over those this time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so long.
They're pretty long. They're awesome to watch, but they're long.
Yes. And we were supposed to do Superman back before we took our hiatus.
Right.
And my kids wanted to, I was like, hey, you guys want to watch Superman? Of course they did. And I wanted them to see the credits because I remembered that I hadn't seen Superman for a long time. And I just remembered them being awesome, seeing these letters fly at you and having John Williams' epic music. And my daughter, Gracie, who was 6 years old at the time, was about halfway through. She just goes, come on. I was like, wow, okay. We finished
no patience
it.
These days.
Yeah, wow. But no, I kind of understood. I was with her, actually. And then you have the reveal of Krypton, which that scene is just awesome.
Yeah.
The music, it's kind of it has that power that the music from 2001 Space Odyssey has. And did John Williams do that too?
He did not. I will look up who did it.
Anyway, I love that scene, the reveal of Krypton. And I like this Krypton a lot more than the Krypton that was in Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm. It's different. It's weird. It's this one to me feels colder.
Well, yes, it appears to be ice.
Right. I don't think it is ice, but that's what it. I mean,
right.
Maybe it's supposed to be like crystals. That's what he.
Right.
So it doesn't feel as homey, I guess you could say, as although not. I mean, the one in Man of Steel didn't quite feel, all that comfortable either.
Right.
But
yeah.
But they're very different, and I think the one from Man of Steel has more of a fantasy element to it. Maybe that's because of the creatures. Yeah. I can't remember what the name of the winged creature that Jor-El calls, but this one has more of like I guess you could call it a sci-fi-ish feel to it. Almost a futuristic feel to it.
Yes. Yeah, it's not too late, though. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about the complete movie of Superman. We might talk about Man of Steel as well.
Yeah.
So, I love, so you go from that into the, I guess you'd call it a courtroom, where Jor-El is sentencing Zod and Ursa and whatever the other guy's name is. Which was interesting because, I mean, this was supposed to be a 2-part, like they knew about the second movie beforehand, right?
Yes, they were going to shoot Superman and Superman 2 back to back, which is something that really, as far as I know, was kind of unheard of.
Any idea why they made that decision?
It was maybe Alexander and Ilya Salkind just believed in it so much that they put up the money for 2 back to back or something. I don't know, but I do know that they were planning on they were shooting them back to back. So the beginning of this movie definitely was going to have a reveal in the second movie. or was going to be resolved, I should say, in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they were shooting the second one, Richard Donner got fired and they brought in another guy and they had to reshoot a whole bunch of it. So I'm wondering if Superman 2 was supposed to come out like a year later and it got pushed back because of reshoots and all that. I actually don't know the release date on it. I'll have to look into that for the Superman 2 episode.
Okay. Anyway, they get sentenced and they get put in the what's it
Phantom
called?
Zone.
Phantom Zone. That was really creepy.
Yeah.
You have this little paper-thin diamond box-shaped thing floating through space. It's making these weird, just sci-fi sounds.
Yeah.
And then it just eats them, basically. and then it shows them going out into space, and their reaction really is interesting. You have Ursa. She's yelling, "Forgive me."
Yeah.
And like her hands are up against it. Zod's yelling, "We will be back." So they have two different concepts of what's going on in the Phantom Zone, obviously.
Non doesn't normally speak, the third guy, so was he saying anything, or was he just kind of like screaming?
I did not note that.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, the Phantom Zone always kind of freaked me out as a kid because it looks like a really thin, like, piece of glass floating, like spinning through space, and they are pressed up. I mean, they're like pressed up against each other and then pressed up against the glass. So I think in other comic book iterations of the Phantom Zone and even Smallville's kind of iteration of the Phantom Zone, it was this like alternate dimension. They were put into the Phantom Zone and it was this whole other universe, really, or like land. They had room to go and they could build things if they wanted to or whatever. But in this version, it really seems like it's very cramped. It seems like they're stuck right there, and that might not be the case, but that's what you kind of get from it,
right?
And it was kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's just very odd to see. So I have a question about why could Jor-El and Lara not leave with Jor-El or Kal-El?
All right, I don't know. Maybe it was a time issue. It seems like right after he kind of explains to the council that Krypton is doomed and they dismiss him is when he starts getting Kal-El prepped for the journey, and then immediately after that, the planet starts to fall apart. So, maybe they couldn't find a spaceship big enough in time, or maybe they just figured it was too late for them, and they just, I don't know. It's just they couldn't go because that's how it is. Superman is the last son of Krypton.
Got it.
This was also, I believe, one of the first times Jor-El wore the Superman S symbol. That it became a symbol for the House of El rather than an S on his chest to stand for Superman.
And this is the first time I noticed that the other council members were wearing their house symbols as well.
Right.
I had never noticed that before.
So I'm assuming, according to this film, it's not an S either. It's a symbol, whether it means hope, like it did in Man of Steel, or if it's actually like a family crest.
Right.
So I always thought that was kind of cool that they did that way. In the comic books, it kind of works. Like I have a comic book from the 80s that John Byrne wrote and penciled, and it has his mom sewing him a costume, and she actually holds up the S and says it was in the rocket ship with him. But in the beginning of the comic, when you have Jor-El there and everything, he's not wearing it. So I don't really know where the S comes from in that comic book. But I know in other versions of Superman, his mom makes the costume, and probably kind of good that they don't go with it this way. And the costume actually kind of comes out of nowhere in this movie. He's learning. He spends years in the Fortress of Solitude in this film, like learning from Jor-El. It just kind of skips over it. He shows up as like a teenager,
right,
and then he flies out as Superman. And so the costume, I guess, was in the Fortress of Solitude or something.
Right.
So it was manifested by the crystal, which I guess is possible. So again, it was another Kryptonian. I'm taking it was kind of as a Kryptonian suit, even though you saw nothing like it on Krypton.
Yeah. I really liked Jeff East's acting as young Clark Kent.
However, that's not his voice.
Oh, really?
Jeff East is performing as young Clark, but if you go back and listen to it, it's actually Christopher Reeve voicing over.
Huh.
He does.
Well, that still doesn't change what I'm saying, though, because I was mainly noting his facial expressions.
Yeah.
How he portrayed anger and stuff, like when the football guy knocks over the he was supposed to be cleaning up the football equipment and stuff, and that gets knocked over, and he can't go with Lana Lang, and just he was so mad, and you could see it in his eyes, and then he does the little running scene, which, I don't like that scene.
It looks bad now. I feel like if we could have seen it in '78 and not have seen anything like it before, I think it would be okay.
But it doesn't even look like he's running.
No, it doesn't really.
I mean, his like thighs aren't moving. It's just his like lower part of his legs that's really running. It just looks weird. But anyway, after he runs and then he beats them there, and they're like, "How'd you get here so fast?" And I ran. It's just the facial feature. And then of course
he's not even out of breath, he's just leaning over the truck.
Yeah. And then of course when Jonathan Kent dies, his reaction to that, when he turns around and sees him on the ground, was really, really good, at least facial acting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I like that scene too. The next scene where he's at the funeral and he's standing there with his mom, and he says to him, he kind of says it. He says it to his mom, I guess, but it's really, I felt like it's always kind of been to himself as well. He says, I have all these powers, and there was nothing I could do to save him. Mm-hmm. And so it really shows, it's kind of a good lesson, I guess, for Clark, It's tough, but, he can't necessarily be there for everyone. He's not going to be able to save everyone.
Yeah. And that plays later in the film.
Right. When you were watching it, did you watch the extended version or the theatrical version? Do you know?
Pretty sure it was theatrical. I'm not sure, though.
During the running scene, did they cut to a little girl on the train who was revealed to be like a young Lois Lane?
Yes.
So that's the extended version.
Oh, yeah?
So the two parents there, or whatever, who tell Lois Lane she's got a big imagination, that woman is the Lois Lane from the old TV show, The Adventures of Superman.
I gotcha.
Noelle Neal, I think is her name, if I recall. And then the man is Kirk Allen, who played Superman in the old serials, who actually, she was also in that as well. So it was kind of a little cameo from previous Superman.
That's cool.
Actors,
so they never cut to her at all in the theatrical?
In the theatrical version, they just show the train, but they never cut to inside the train and show that little girl saying, Mommy, that man was running really fast, or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, well then I definitely saw the extended, because they did cut to that. So,
and that's the version that most DVDs of. That's like the version that is most popular, I should say. Mm-hmm. I bought back when Superman Returns was released on DVD. I bought like the big Superman box set, and it came with both. And so that's why I was just wondering. But the Blu-ray and the DVD, the other DVD I have of it, they're both the extended version.
I mean, the extended wasn't long by any means.
Well, the movie's like 2.5 hours.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure it's like 150 minutes, I think, at least. I could be wrong, but I mean, it takes like an hour before he even becomes Superman.
Yeah,
it takes a long time before they even get to Metropolis. You got all the Krypton stuff, and then you got Clark as a kid, and his dad's funeral, and then going to the Fortress of Solitude. It takes a while.
Yeah. So he goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and he takes out the crystal, which he finds in the barn.
Right. Which I'm assuming is where his spaceship was buried. Did you see the spaceship in that scene? I
No,
forget.
it was just like a crystal kind of
In a box or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that crystal got there.
And it was glowing.
Yeah. First time I saw the movie, I think I'm assuming the first time I saw the movie, I thought it was kryptonite. And I remember being like, how can he touch that? But
Right. I wonder if, because when he gets to the Fortress of Solitude and activates Jor-El's little, talking image, Jor-El mentions that he would be 18 by now.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe the crystal knew how old he was.
To go off, like there was
and then
alarm.
It started glowing like around, his 18th
birthday. It could be.
I don't think they went into that. But I was wondering, so he goes off and he throws the crystal, and then it becomes the Fortress of Solitude.
Right.
What made him know to throw this crystal in the middle of ice and it just become...
I've always wondered that too. I was like, was he throwing it to get rid of it? Like, this is stupid. I hate this crystal. And he threw it.
I've come this far without any answers.
Right, exactly. And then it creates the fortress, and he's like, oh, well, that's convenient. He's like, I guess I could have done that at home. I don't know. I've always wondered that myself. It's something that's not really totally explained. Did he throw it because he was aggravated, or did he throw it because he knew he needed to... This is where the fortress was supposed to be built or something,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And, well,
I'll say right now, as much as I love this movie, it has a lot of holes. There's some problems with the story and everything, but we'll get into that as we go forward. But that's one of them, kind of.
Well, I was going to say, I kind of have a possible non-explained explanation.
Okay.
Could be, because after he goes on the Fortress of Solitude, he picks up the clear crystal.
Yeah.
Is that the same crystal, first of all? Maybe when it created the Fortress of Solitude, the green,
disappeared.
Yeah.
It could be. You never see that green crystal again.
Right. So I don't know. But anyway, he picks up a clear crystal and then puts it back down, whether it's in the same spot or not. But that's when it activates Jor-El's image.
Yeah.
And, how would he know how to do that?
Right.
So I'm wondering if maybe the throwing the crystal... Maybe when he was traveling to Earth as a baby and Jor-El was talking through him the entire journey, maybe
he was telling him how
subconsciously
to do
it was embedded in his head how to get this to work.
Yeah, that's very possible. I actually just thought of that right before you said it. I was like, I wonder if maybe he was telling him how to do it when he was a kid.
Right.
So yeah, that would be, in my opinion, the best explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Is it was... He just kind of... maybe he didn't know how he knew how to do it, but that's why.
Right, it's just like instinct.
Right.
And maybe Krypton is ice, and maybe he had to go up there, and the crystal only activates in ice or cold weather.
Could be.
Either that or it's Krypton. It's one or the other.
They dabble in that a little bit, within Superman Returns. But that movie came out so much later, you can't really take that as an explanation. But in Superman Returns, it's just water. If you drop the crystal in water, it starts to grow. But, I feel like cold temperature makes for a better explanation. So, because if you threw it, like, let's say, what if he didn't know and he was like, this is a stupid crystal, and he threw it, like, in Kansas or Smallville or whatever, and it lands in like a pond, and then suddenly the Fortress of Solitude is like in his mom's backyard, and he's like, "Oh, sorry,
that didn't go as planned."
I'll clean it up, Mom. I'm sorry. So yeah, he creates the Fortress of Solitude.
He does, and that's when Jor-El explains to him everything that's happened. He kind of repeats the same stuff that he was telling him as a baby.
Right.
But he mentions that it'll take 12... Basically, I think he's like, all of the knowledge of the 23 galaxies that are known are in this crystal. Mm-hmm. And it'll, and I don't know if he guess just sat there and absorbed it like a sponge, but he said it would take 12 years.
Yeah.
And then that's when we come to Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent.
Right.
Cal.
Yeah, it just skips over those 12 years kind of. And I think there's if I remember, there's like a weird kind of sequence where there's like weird lighting and whatnot kind of going across the screen. You hear Brando talking. And then when that's done, you see Christopher Reeve in the Superman suit and he like flies towards the camera. This is actually one sequence where I think Man of Steel did it a little better with having Jor-El talk to Clark and answer some of the questions face to face with Clark, and then showing him the suit and then telling him, the only way to really know how powerful you are is to keep testing your limits, and that's when he like learns to fly and stuff. Like, I think that sequence in Man of Steel is probably a little bit better just because it skips over. You don't see any of it in this movie. It's just that weird lighting sequence and Brando talking, and then suddenly he's flying.
I picked up my drink and smelled it to make sure nothing had been dropped in it.
Right. You weren't having a bad trip or anything.
Right.
And then you cut from that to suddenly you're in Metropolis, which I know for probably budgetary reasons, perhaps, they didn't want to build like a whole new city. So they shot Metropolis in New York City. But they didn't even try to hide the fact that it was New York City. Like, you see the Statue of Liberty. You see the Empire State Building. Pretty sure you see the World Trade Center. Like, it's New York City. They're just calling it Metropolis now. And that was something that was always kind of disappointing to me. I was like, it's not really Metropolis.
That is really funny. I did not think about that at all.
Really?
I did. I'm just like, oh, Statue of Liberty. Cool. Did not make me think, but you're right. That unless he took her to New York.
Right, which is possible, I guess. But I think I'm almost positive Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, they're just flying around Metropolis.
Yeah. And so when we first come into the Daily Planet, I believe we are with Lois Lane, and we see Clark Kent as the disguised Clark Kent for the first time. And this is another thing that was kind of a first for this film and for the franchise, if I'm not mistaken, is that this was the first time Clark Kent was a disguise. I mean, I guess you could say the glasses were always a disguise.
Uh-huh.
But he was a completely different personality.
Yes.
George Reeves played it like pretty much, I mean, he was a little bit different with Superman, maybe vocally and whatnot, but he was a charming guy. He wasn't really trying to be forgettable or anything like that. And so Christopher Reeve, his portrayal of Clark Kent was so different, and it was so perfect.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure that was in the story. I'm sure it was written to be kind of that way. But he nailed it.
Yeah.
With just being so clumsy and nobody paying attention to him.
Yeah, you pointed this out to me a while ago, and I had never really thought of it like that. But yeah, you're right. He's just a complete goof.
Mm-hmm.
And he stutters. He can't even speak.
Right.
He's running into everything. He's so he's so self-conscious.
Right.
Slumps his shoulders. And basically you would never, I mean, you look through you don't even see him.
Yeah.
He's just a nobody. And
there's a moment in this scene. I might have to pause this real quick so I can pop it in and remember it exactly. But I'll try to real quick to go through it. There's a moment in this scene where he first meets Jimmy Olsen, and Jimmy Olsen, out of everybody, I mean, granted, Perry White is interviewing him and everything, but Perry White's mind is elsewhere. He starts talking to Lois. He starts dealing with this other stuff during the interview. Kind of, it seems like,
right.
Jimmy Olsen, I think, is the first person who actually stops and introduces himself to Clark, and actually kind of gives him a moment.
I gotcha.
And I feel like you could really see it on Clark's face that he like really appreciates it, and I feel like that was the beginning of kind of their friendship. It's not that friendship really maybe they don't quite go into it in these movies as it does maybe in the comics and whatnot, but I thought that was a good moment where Jimmy Olsen stops and says like, "Hey, I'm Jimmy," and Clark is almost surprised, and he's like, "I'm Clark," and you could just tell that he was really kind of almost touched by it.
Yeah,
because I thought about that watching this movie this time. Everybody's so mean to him when he's Clark Kent. It's like that's got to take a toll on you. I mean, you're like, if you only knew that I was Superman, you wouldn't treat me this way. But he never has that thought, I don't think, you know. He knows that he has to do that, and he doesn't care really that people are mean to him. He's still going to save them and whatnot. He's still going to be Superman and all this, but it, you know, there's one moment in particular where he's trying to get on the elevator. He's like going down, and the guy sticks his arm out and taps on the wall. He's like, up, I'm going up. He's like, he's so mean to him.
I love that part.
And so I think it really kind of, touched Clark that Jimmy was that nice.
Yeah.
To him.
Right before that, when Perry White was interviewing him, and he was telling Lois Lane that he got the job, I was kind of like, why? He looked so happy that Clark was, and he mentions to Lois that he's getting the city bit,
right? And
she was like, why? And I was like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Why is he so happy that he hired Clark? And he mentions that he's the fastest typer he's ever seen.
Right.
So that made sense right there, of course.
I do like how in this movie and even Man of Steel, he never goes to like journalism school, never goes to college or anything, at least that we see. And that, yeah, he's still able to, I mean, granted, he's a smart guy. I'm assuming he can write well if he gets a job at a newspaper.
Right.
But he just like walks in and they're like, "Yep, you're hired. We like you."
Well, like I say, you know, he can type fast, so he can type really fast. Yeah, that's kind of an ongoing joke with Lois Lane about her abilities. She can't spell.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Margot Kidder. What did you think about Margot Kidder as Lois Lane?
I did not like her for a while.
Yeah.
But as the movie went on, because like I said, it'd been a while since I watched this, and when I tried to rewatch it for our past episode, I didn't finish the movie. Right. I think I got to where he was saving people.
Right.
But yeah, Margot Kidder grew on me throughout the movie, and I think she did a good job.
Yeah. She's never been my favorite. Honestly, I'm not sure who my favorite Lois Lane would be, but she does a great job, I think. She does have a lot of that confidence that I think Lois Lane needs. She's very assertive. She's able to kind of, you know, she's not afraid to like stand up and to somebody or whatever, you know. So, and those are all the things that I think Lois Lane has. But for whatever reason, I just never, I don't know. I can't really pinpoint why she's never really been my favorite Lois Lane, but she does do a good job, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Little trivia tidbit for you. The guy that plays Jimmy Olsen is Marty McFly's older brother in Back to the Future. Same actor.
Nice.
Yeah, sure.
So let's talk about Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. Because this is around the time, well, that's close to around the time that he gets introduced.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think Gene Hackman was a great Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
You know, he had already won an Oscar at this point for The French Connection back in 1971. And so I felt like, I think I heard or remember reading that he was also a little difficult. He didn't want to shave his head. Mm-hmm. Which is evident because he's always, I think he does wear different wigs or has his hair done in different scenes to make it look like he's wearing different wigs. But he like refused. He apparently didn't want to. He had a mustache before filming and didn't want to shave that either. And they were like, well, shave the mustache and you can keep your hair, I guess. And he like settled or something. But so it's not a bald Lex Luthor like we're kind of used to up until the end anyway. But I think
so. Did he shave his head at the end, or was that just a cap?
It was a bald cap. Yeah.
Gotcha.
He didn't want to do it. And I think, because I know you see him bald in part 2, I'm assuming that's a bald cap as well. Unless either that or he finally got over it and did it. But the only thing that I think is weird about the film, this series, I guess, version of Lex Luthor is that he's not the billionaire businessman that we've kind of known Lex Luthor to be. He's this, he does have money, but he's already become this criminal who has to live underground. He's, you know, the cops are looking for him in the very beginning. They're following Otis to try to find Lex Luthor's like lair. But he's not this man that's respected. You know, in the comic books, Lex Luthor gets elected to be president of the United States. So I've always thought Lex Luthor was kind of always seen in the public as this respectable businessman who nobody really knows is a bad guy except for like Superman and the people who are close to Lex. But in this film, everybody knows he's a bad guy. And he even says he's, you know, the best criminal mastermind alive. And so it's a very different take on Lex Luthor, but I think he plays it perfectly.
Yeah.
I think he's great.
He's very witty. His lines are great.
Yeah.
And the way he just delivers them is just awesome.
Why he surrounds himself with Otis and Miss Tessmacher? I mean, Miss Tessmacher isn't really stupid necessarily, but I can understand maybe why he's got her around. But why he has Otis around, I really don't understand. Unless Otis is the smartest person you can have around and order. You know, like he can order Otis around, and Otis does it.
Yeah, just
really
loyalty.
Question it. Yeah, it's just loyalty, I guess. But he hates Otis. You know, he's constantly berating him and making fun of him.
You want to see a long arm? You want to see a long arm? Next scene, he has a black eye.
Uh-huh. And Otis is kind of dumb. Like, I always think about the scene where he brings Lex Luthor's robe while Lex is getting out of the pool.
Right.
And he goes into the pool to give it to him. And Lex, what's great about that scene is Lex finishes his speech and then says, and Otis, next time you bring me my robe, wait till I get out of the pool.
He puts it on him and everything. He's tying it. What's funny is when I watched I saw that scene the last time too. And I was thinking, oh, I guess the robe is supposed to be put on after you get out. Right. And then he says that, and we're like, okay, yeah. I thought so.
You're like, I always thought you wouldn't want to get your robe wet, but whatever. Shortly after Lex Luthor's introduction, if I'm recalling it correctly, is not necessarily Superman's introduction. We've seen him fly out of the Fortress of Solitude, but it is the first moment Metropolis has seen Superman, which is one of the best scenes in the movie. Is when Lois she goes to the roof of the Daily Planet to get into the helicopter to go to the airport to meet the president. Air Force One is flying in. And there is a problem. There's like a cord or something on the roof that comes unhooked and gets wrapped around like the helicopter, and they can't take off. Why they aren't able to just like set it back down before they start like spinning out of control, I never really got, but you know, it's a Superman movie. There has to be a problem.
Right.
And so that's one of the best scenes is she falls. By the way, it takes forever for her hat to hit the ground. I don't know if you noticed that. But that door opens and her yellow hat falls out. And everybody's like, oh, because they see the hat falling. And then it takes, I don't know how, there's like so many different cutaway scenes of her trying to pull herself up, of the crowd looking up at her, until finally Clark comes out of the Daily Planet, and then that's when the hat hits the ground. And you're like, that hat took its sweet time getting to the ground. But then there's the great nod. You know, he realizes he needs to get into his Superman costume and save the day, and he walks up to the payphone that is no longer, they don't have phone booths, I guess, anymore. And
you've got the John Williams music starting.
Right. Oh, yeah. Dun, 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 dun. And then, so then he goes into a revolving door, and that's how he changes clothes. And then that guy, it's one of my favorite lines in the movie just because I think it's so funny. He's like, say, Jim, that's a bad outfit. It's great. And then Superman flies up, and there's that great moment where he catches her, and he's like, don't worry, miss, I've got you. And she goes, you've got me? Who's got you? That's like one of the best lines in the film.
Yeah.
You gotta love that moment.
Yeah.
And then, to me, just watching Superman fly up and catch the helicopter with one arm, and just no problem, catching the helicopter and flying it back up to the roof.
Yeah.
It's awesome, especially with that John Williams music swelling and everything. Like, how can you not love that scene?
Yeah. Great introduction.
Yeah, absolutely.
To Superman. You had seen him once before, but it was just flying out of the Fortress of Solitude. So this technically still was an introduction to definitely to the hero. Definitely awesome. And you mentioned Superman movies problems. A little cord gets a helicopter, but that's one of the things I really noted this time that I really like about it is it's the little things. that Superman is going around and saving.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what's great about that whole montage. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like how he was in the Fletcher cartoons. Mm-hmm. You know, a train that doesn't have brakes.
Right.
Superman has to stop. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was a very classic feeling to just see him doing all the things that he did. After you mentioned the montage, he chases down some robbers.
Yep. He's like stops them on their boat, and then he brings the whole boat to the police station, which I think is great.
The guy mentions the first drink's on him, the chief police or whatever.
Go back to the bar and finish what you started. I'll be there myself.
Right.
And then he sees Superman and goes...
I found it interesting that they were going to go drink instead of help the other police officers with the situation.
That is funny. Well, I guess they'll be fine. You know, they're on the boat. They're tied up. They're not going anywhere. Superman's kind of blocked traffic for a while by putting a boat in the middle of the street.
Yeah. Speaking of blocking traffic, the scene where they're hijacking the warhead. Was pretty interesting. First, Lex Luthor gets a hold of an ambulance. Finds out, and that's when what's his guy's
name? It's like
name?
An old school ambulance too. It's like a Ghostbusters car. It's like the Ecto-1.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was 78. But what's
I guess
Otis?
Yeah, Otis.
Otis goes and messes up the frequency. So then the next scene, Lex Luthor has happened himself upon a wide load truck carrying a house. Don't know where he got that from, but he blocks the warhead.
Yeah.
And I found that interesting that he was able to get a giant home on a
double wide.
Truck. Yeah.
Like I said, he's got money, I guess, you know, so maybe he bought it or maybe he stole it. I don't know.
He ran to wherever it must have been nearby and bought a double wide truck and a house and was able to stop them that quickly.
Otis is probably like, do we need like the whole house to do it, or can we just get like a truck? And Lex is like, shut up, Otis. I know of a guy. We can get a house. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know why he did that.
Not to mention all of the military people like to get out of the vehicle.
Yeah, every single one of them.
They have like 6 different vehicles, and every one of them gets out and just goes and talks to Lex Luthor. Both times. Well, no, I take that back. The first time they had to surround what's the girl's
Miss
name?
Tessmacher. Yeah.
About face.
Yeah. Mouth to mouth and chest resuscitation.
Right.
He's like, no, I'll take care of it myself. Yeah, that's funny.
Wouldn't ask of anything I wouldn't be prepared to do myself.
Good little comic moments, I guess you could say, with Lex Luthor's gang. And that's one of my questions watching the film this time around was, you know, Lex Luthor, Superman is introduced to the world. He has that montage. He saves the kitty from the tree. He saves he gets the robbers, stops the diamond thief. And then after that, he has an interview with Lois Lane that he sets up. And that's actually my least favorite scene in the movie. Not the interview, but when they go off flying and it's the whole, can you read my mind type thing.
Did you notice? I think that's a poem.
It does seem to rhyme. I don't know if it was written for the movie or if it was from something else. But it goes on too long and it's super cheesy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's not my favorite. That's actually the scene I believe I fast-forwarded through this time around. But after that, she puts it out. I don't know why Superman would tell a reporter that he can't see through lead or all these like details about him.
Right.
And then she puts it in to the newspaper, I Spent the Night with Superman, and it shows Lex Luthor reading it. And for whatever reason, Lex Luthor just automatically knows. He's like, you know what? I bet pieces of his homeworld came to Earth, and I bet they're radioactive.
Right.
And I bet they would harm only him.
Did it?
No, it's just he just knows. for some reason. It's just like he's like, these pieces would be harmful to him only. And that was my thought. I was like, how does he come to that conclusion? Like, what makes him think that?
He's the world's greatest criminal mind.
I guess. And so they're like, we got to steal some kryptonite. And I don't even know if they call it kryptonite, but that part I was like, why? I don't get that. They were just like, Lex Luthor would just be like, he's the only one that thought of it too, you know? That was my little question about Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
But Lex Luthor's whole plan in this movie is, you know, land is the one thing they don't make anymore. So his whole plan is to shoot a missile at the San Andreas Fault in California and basically knock pretty much all of California into the ocean. And that way, all the land that he owns, that's all desert property, will soon now become coastal property, and he can charge out an arm and a leg for it.
Right. And I thought that was pretty brilliant, actually. But LA is gorgeous weather, isn't it?
Yes. It's pretty much always like 70 degrees here. Not all. I mean, it gets hot. It's hot right now, but it's better than, there's like no humidity out here, and it rains barely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty great.
I don't think the land that he bought would maintain that climate.
Would have the same weather?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's one of your holes right there.
Right. Another big problem, I'll just jump towards the end here. Lex Luthor gets Superman's attention with like a high, I don't know if it was high pitched, I guess it was, because he said only dogs could hear it, really. He gets Superman's attention with this like high pitched frequency, and he tells him, he kind of cons him into finding him at his lair.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly what he says. He says he has a gas pellet or something that he's going to use.
Yeah, it's going to take out like half the population of the city.
Right. So Superman's forced to go see him, and he's like, I don't really have anything. I was just kidding with you.
I liked the way his voice sounded in that scene.
Yeah, Lex Luthor. Cool. Yeah.
It was very menacing.
Mm-hmm. And so this, as far as I know, is the first time Superman and Lex Luthor come face to face. And Lex Luthor...
If you're going to jump to that, I want to know, speaking of jumping, Clark Kent goes and opens a window secretly, looks around, no one's looking, he jumps out.
Yeah.
And then he wills his clothes to disappear?
Yeah, that's one of the things that they do in, not only in this movie, but I feel like it happens in either 2, 3, or 4, or maybe all of them, where he kind of does that. You know, he's just like, he takes off in flight. I mean, there's always the moment where he opens up his shirt and you see the S, but then his clothes just disappear. Even when he's going through the revolving door, like, where did he put his clothes?
Mm-hmm.
And
I give him that one. I can see him kind of, on one round on the inside, he just kind of puts them there on the side, folded nicely with the tie on top.
In the building, and then comes back to the revolving door. But yeah, jumping out the window, yeah, he just... you could say he does it really fast, but where do the clothes go?
They disappear, Justin. They just disappear.
Could be moving faster than you could see it.
That's true.
No, they do. He goes... It's like, obviously, it's like a camera dissolve, you know?
Yeah.
It goes from falling in his clothes to falling in his suit. Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain that one either.
Okay. We'll go back to what you were talking about. This is the first time Superman meets Lex. Right.
And so Lex Luthor, like every good Bond villain, basically tells Superman his whole plan before he can actually do the plan. And he tells Superman that there's 2 missiles. Well, actually, Miss Tessmacher does. And Lex Luthor says, even you with your great speed can't stop them both. And I always thought that was not true. Especially since, granted, you could say that he didn't know the extent of his speed until he was kind of forced, because later in the movie we see him circling the Earth.
Right.
Very quickly.
That is the speed of the Flash right there.
There's actually, have you ever seen those cartoons on YouTube called How It Should Have Ended? Like, it's like...
Yes.
How Lord of the Rings should have ended, or how Back to the Future should have ended. The Superman one is great because it's in that scene, And Lex Luthor says, "Not you. Even you with your great speed can't stop them both." And Superman goes, "Say that again." And he said, "I said even you with your great speed can't stop them both." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll be right back." And then he comes back with the 2 rockets in his hand, the 2 missiles. He's like, "Are these the missiles you were talking about?" "They can't be because you said I couldn't stop them both." And it's pretty funny. And that would have been probably a great ending. But so Superman is kind of also tricked into as far as I know, he discovers kryptonite for the first time.
Real quick though, I want to point out, I mentioned in one of our X-Men First Class episode.
Yeah,
I said that the Beast could run as fast as the Flash. I was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I did not like that he was able to run that fast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can Beast not run that fast in the comics?
He ran pretty fast. I don't think he
not
can run that fast.
I got you.
Back to Superman.
So what is he looking for? A detonator or a trigger or something? I forget. But Lex Luthor tricks him, and he opens up a lead-cased box that has kryptonite in it. And so he puts the kryptonite on him to keep him from getting the missiles. Even though he says, with your great speed, you can't stop them both. He has a back. I guess he has like a security, make sure that Superman can't stop them both. And I think, had he not
because
had kryptonite,
he only wanted he wanted to make sure the
California,
hit.
Yeah.
So if Superman stopped one, he didn't want it to be that one.
Right. So, in a way, his plan still kind of worked, because even though he got kryptonite put on him, he sent the other one. This is where Lex's real problem is. He sent the other one to Hackensack, New Jersey, of all places. I don't know why.
No, the reason that was the first one that Otis messed up.
So it was not originally supposed to go to Hackensack, New Jersey?
It just happened to be the location that he put in the coordinates. This is the way I'm taking it.
Okay.
That's what it was.
I got you.
So when they stopped the missile with the double wide load truck, that was the second missile.
Right.
And they redid, and then they put in the right coordinates. But yeah, Hackensack, New Jersey was just coincidence.
Oh, right.
Because
that's right. Because Otis had written the numbers on his arm,
right,
for the coordinates or whatever, and he messed it up.
Yeah,
that's right. I remember that. So, well, Hackensack, New Jersey, just happens to be where Miss Tessmacher's mom lives. Had it been anywhere else, had it been New York City, well, I guess I'm assuming their metropolis is where New York City is, right? Well, I guess not, because then Hackensack, New Jersey would be pretty close.
Right. No, I think New York exists. Metropolis is supposed to be like New York. Right. But I don't think it is New York.
All right, well, say Metropolis is kind of near Kansas then, like near the center of the U.S., but I don't know where the water is. He sends one to... That would make sense, because then it would be kind of centrally located. One missile's going one way, one missile's going the other.
Right.
Kind of equal distance, perhaps. Miss Tessmacher agrees to save Superman if he stops that missile first, and he reluctantly agrees. I like how he says, but Lois and Jimmy, those are the only people he cares about on the West Coast.
And I have a point on that in a moment.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can go ahead and get to it. Basically, Miss Tessmacher takes the kryptonite off. He flies towards Hackensack, New Jersey, and he's able to stop that missile. And then he starts flying towards the West Coast.
Right. And the only reason he did that was, did you mention?
Because he promised Miss Tessmacher that he would. Yeah.
Right.
And Superman always tells the truth.
He always tells the truth. And that proves it right there.
Right.
I mean, he wanted to go to California. So he goes back, the missile hits, then you start having the fault crack. I didn't like when he goes under and starts filling in the holes.
Yeah. It didn't seem to do a whole lot either.
Right, but the way they
kind of silly.
It looked terrible. I mean, it was like rewound footage.
Yeah. Well, I think it was, probably.
Yeah. It just fits so nicely.
Yeah.
then he makes it to, and this is another example of, like, it's the little things. Even though you've got these giant nuclear missiles, I still consider that more classic of a situation than, you know, like a giant Galactus or whatever. You know, I'm throwing out a Marvel character, but you know, something like to that degree. These are just missiles, you know, laser beams, like I said. So I liked that. A dam, you know, exploding, and he has to stop the water. So he stops the water by, which I liked, you know, breaking up pieces of mountain and throwing rocks down there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But my point about the Lois and Jimmy comment was, he's doing all that stuff. He stops the water from destroying that little town.
Yeah.
And then he looks so satisfied. He's like, that did it. And then all of a sudden, he gets that face of horror, and he remembers Lois.
Yeah.
It's like, I forgot about her. So what happened there, Superman?
I guess, you know, I would say, you know, he's only human, even though he's Kryptonian. But I guess even things can slip Superman's mind.
Well, that was a big one.
That's a huge one, really, because I'm going to say he was distracted. He got to Jimmy, stopped the dam, but got distracted. He got distracted by, you know, the dam almost ruining the town, destroying the town. So he focused on that. And he's like, I'm Superman.
Right.
Job well done.
Yeah.
And then remembered Lois, and of course it was too late. Here's my big question about that. So he gets to Lois, and she's dead, which is a great moment, because seeing angry Superman, Christopher Reeve, again, just knocks it out of the park.
Oh, the scream.
Yeah.
Was so awesome.
So good. And he angry flies into the sky, and then we see that he starts to reverse time. He starts, in some weird way, flying around Earth in the opposite direction, and it slows the spin of Earth down, and then starts spinning it in the opposite direction, which, for whatever reason, starts reversing time. And he fixes... It does the rewound footage, you know. It shows the car coming out of the ground. And it also shows the dam fixing itself, right? But that's where he stops it.
Right.
He doesn't stop the missiles or anything.
Right.
So what he really did was, he said, Lois is more important than that town. And because that's where he stops it, and then he flies to Lois, and she can't get her car started. But that town is now destroyed, because I'm assuming the dam still broke. Once he hit play, you know.
Well, yeah, because Jimmy makes a comment that... Well, no, I don't. I think he saved it still, because Jimmy makes a comment like, well done, Superman, or something.
He does. Well, I mean, the idea is that he still saved... He supposedly still saved it, but we don't see it.
Right. It was very weird.
It would take him just the same amount of time. Lois would still be dead. He obviously went... Because Lois's car didn't start to go into the ground yet, so he obviously went to Lois first. But then Jimmy does show up. So it's a big hole, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. He should have gone back, stopped the missiles.
Yeah, if he could just reverse time,
basically all he had to do was not open the box of kryptonite.
Right, exactly. And maybe that's what he did. They just didn't show it. But I feel like they should have shown it going back.
No, they did, because the missiles went off because she's talking about an earthquake.
Yeah, she was like, telephone poles are falling down.
Right.
Yeah. So he did not stop the missiles.
He didn't stop the missiles.
True. So he let a town go underwater and let a bunch of people die so that Lois could live.
I get it. He must have gone to save Jimmy.
Yeah.
And said, forget the village.
Forget the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lois.
They're not important.
Lois is dying. I need to go get her.
Superman's a jerk. That part always confused me a little bit. How I'm assuming he did something to... Since maybe he had already done it before, maybe he just had to push that boulder really quickly. And he did that right before he went to Lois or something.
Right.
They should have shown that.
Yeah. I don't know.
And that's basically the end of the movie. He goes and he grabs Lex and Otis, takes them to jail. And the jail warden has a really cheesy line and says, "Thanks, Superman. The world is now a safer place thanks to you."
It was very scripted.
Yeah.
It was bad acting.
But I liked what Superman said, and he's like, "No, don't thank me. We're all part of the same team."
Right.
It's a very Superman thing. But then again, John Williams' music starts swelling. We see him fly into space, kind of flies towards the camera, looks at us, winks.
Yeah, what do you think of the wink shot?
It doesn't bother me because they do it in every movie.
I love it.
Yeah. I actually think it's great.
I don't know about every movie.
They do it other than Man of Steel. Like they do it in 1, 2, 3, 4 in Returns.
Yeah. Does he wink? I don't think he winks. I think he just smiles.
He might just smile.
But,
maybe, I don't know. I always assumed it was kind of the same footage from the first film in part 2, 3, and 4. But I think in Returns, I think you're right, he just smiles. He might not wink in all of the Reeves Christopher Reeve might not wink in all of them. He might just be the first one. I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But I think I can't remember. I mean, I believe you, and I think I remember it in the second one now that you mention it. I was fine with it. I thought it was kind of I guess a heartwarming moment to just see Superman look and just, he's like, "Hey, yeah. I'm on your guys' team."
Right.
Kind of scene, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's great. And I think, despite its holes that we kind of notice now, I still think it's a great movie. It's very entertaining. And it was, the Superman movies were the only comic book movies, as far as I know, really, up until the 89 Batman.
Yeah.
They did, I think the Superman 4 came out in like 86. So 3 years before Batman, but that one was kind of the Batman and Robin of the series. Everybody really hated it.
Yeah.
And it kind of ended the franchise. And so that's another thing, not to get off topic of Superman, but that's another reason why I feel like the 1989 Batman movie was kind of a gamble, because it seemed like superhero movies were kind of a joke by that point again, kind of like they were with Superman when it started.
But they nailed that one.
Yeah, they sure did. They nailed this one, and they nailed that Batman. John Williams' score is quite possibly one of the best. Almost every John Williams score is quite possibly one of the best film scores of all time. But I am curious. I didn't really think about it until you were talking about Mario Puzo potentially maybe bringing on Marlon Brando because of The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if, due to the success of Star Wars, if that's why they brought on John Williams. Or if they just... Richard Donner just wanted
he didn't have anything really on his plate at that point.
John Williams?
Yeah.
Well...
He had Jaws, which was...
Jaws.
That's nothing.
What do you mean that's not... Like, that? The score was nothing?
I mean, I'm saying... It was very impactful, but as far as saying this guy's a great composer, you can't say that. You know what I'm saying? If all Jaws was
it was just one movie,
yeah, and it's just a couple notes,
right?
Star Wars, yeah, awesome score, but what else did he have besides those?
Close Encounters. When did that come out? Is that 77 around?
I was thinking that was 81. But even so, that's not necessarily. There's not necessarily a score to that. I can't think of what that score is.
Well, I'm ashamed to admit it was 1977. I'm ashamed to admit I've never seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah, but he's known now as the guy that when he does a score, if you remember a score, there's a good chance it was John Williams,
right?
And I would not think he had that reputation at the time. Superman's one of the ones that helped give him that.
Right.
So, I don't know.
He's done quite a few movies, but I don't know how popular they were, especially in terms of...
that's what I mean. I'm not saying he didn't have a resume.
Right.
It's just, it wasn't what it is today. He wasn't known as the greatest movie composer of all time.
Right. I mean, it looks like he's been doing composing since the early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like actually the late 50s. But his first, probably iconic score, and correct me, listeners, if I'm wrong, I would probably say would be Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a film composer, successful film composer. He did the Earthquake and the Towering Inferno. He did a couple of different movies, but I would say I'm still thinking because of the success of Jaws and Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite possible.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but
little did they know
speculation
what he would become.
Right. So, yeah, obviously I love this movie. You know, I grew up on it. I can pretty much quote it. I normally would probably give this movie an A+, but due to some of the holes that we talked about, I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to knock just a couple of points off and give it an A. Because I still love it. I still think it's one of the greatest comic book superhero movies of all time, but it does have some problems. It does have a couple of holes. It does have some silly moments, but not so bad that I would go any below an A.
Gotcha. Now, I think you're being a little biased because I think, because Superman's your favorite superhero, right?
Right.
Yeah. I do enjoy the movie too, and it's so classic.
Mm-hmm.
I give it. Here's another one. 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, I mean you're probably not alone. On IMDb, it's a 7.4 out of 10. On Rotten Tomatoes, which that's it's user based, so that's not critics. That's users saying they give it about a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Critics, however, I think it's a pretty high score if I'm not mistaken. It's a 93%. So that's probably closer to an A-. But I believe I gave it 5 stars on my Flickster account.
Nice.
So yeah, obviously, I really love the movie. John really likes the movie. We'd love to hear what you think about Superman the movie. Feel free to leave us a comment on cinemaheroes.com or email us, John at cinemaheroes or Justin at cinemaheroes. Or you can go leave a comment on our Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast, or tweet us at cinemaheroes.
And please, if you know where Lex Luthor got that house from, I want to know that.
I might have to go back and watch this movie again with commentary, just kind of figure that out. See if Richard Donner says anything about it. As always, if you have any Amazon purchases, head over to cinemaheroes.com, click on our Amazon banner. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but we get a small, tiny percentage of the money you spend, and that's always appreciated. It goes towards podcasting costs. So I think that is it for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading.